Hey guys, Water24 here with another deck tech video. This time, instead of doing something that will still work when Return to Ravnica comes out, I'm doing a little something different. And now, with this deck, the reason it works decently, and it did work pretty well for me, is that it still uses some New Phyrexia and M12 stuff, but I'll get to that in a moment. This is strictly blue mill. Completely a blue mill deck. With like a couple creatures to help protect you, but it's mainly for milling. And hopefully, within a few turns, you can actually get them down pretty far to where they have run out of certain cards that they need to win. So, let me go ahead and go over exactly what's in it. Now, we're going to start with the land. It's all island. It's 100% blue. So we got 24 island here, which is pretty important. While the cost is pretty low for most of this, there's some that require things like X, which when it comes to a casting cost or requirement of X cards or so, then you want more land. And while you may be drawing land sometimes, while you're still drawing, there are ways to mill the person down. Now let me keep going. I'm going to go ahead with the one that was beside it. We have 4 mana leaks here. Mana leak is going to be pretty important because you're going to be stopping them from casting certain spells. So after that, we have Mind Sculpt. We got 4 of those. And of course, target opponent puts top 7 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Now, that will be pretty helpful. And this, I believe, is supposed to replace like Jace's Erasure. So, Mind Sculpt is pretty good for milling here. Next up, we have from New Phyrexia, Vapor Snag. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Its controller loses 1 life. Very important if they got big creatures out there. You can just send them right back to their hand. They lose 1 life, they gotta cast it all over again. So that'll help save you in the long run, especially during any attack times. Next we have Thought Scour. Target player puts top 2 cards from his or her library into his or her graveyard, and then you draw a card. So, not a bad card there. 1, drop the milling. 2, and then we have Dream Twist, 4 of those. Target player puts top 3 cards into the graveyard. And it's got flashback as well. So, that really isn't bad at all. Then, we have 1 Sands of Delirium. Mainly because I only had 1. And this is where you have the X cost. While it costs 3, you pay X and tap it. And they put top X cards into the graveyard from their library, which is also pretty useful. Also along the lines of the X cost, we've got Dreadwaters. Costs 4, but they put top X cards where X is the number of lands you control, which is why if you've like 24 lands on the table, which might be a little bit difficult if you're playing this, I don't think you'd get that far. Either you'd die or you'd mill the other person out. But, if you have the 24 lands, then they're milling for 24 with each one of these, which is pretty great. The most I've ever gotten is about 10 with one of these, so, and that in a tournament, so that's not bad at all. And then we have the M12 Jace's Erasure, 4 of them. And of course, that's when you draw a card, they put a card, or a target player puts a card from their library into their graveyard, which can be pretty helpful if you're doing a lot of drawing. Then we have Jace Memory Adept. I've got the M12 and M13 exact same, just a reprint. With the 0 ability, top 10 cards into the graveyard, and also the draw card and put a card into graveyard. And of course, any number of target players each draw 20 cards. Not bad there if you want to mill someone out. Alright, now onto our creatures. We have 2 fog banks to help defend. You probably want a couple more, but at the time this is all I had for it. Plus I wanted to keep some of the other stuff in there. So you got fog bank there. Prevent all combat damage. That would be dealt to and by it. Now, the only problem with fog bank is it cannot stop anything with trample. Like if something has it's 5/5 with trample, it prevents the 2 damage that it would take, but 3 damage is still trampling on. So that's the only downfall with fog bank. But it's flying too, so you can pretty much stop almost anything except trample. And we got 3 Jace's Phantasms. 1 drop. It's a 1/1, but when there are 10 or more cards in the opponent's graveyard, it gets +4/+4. So it's a 5/5 essentially, as long as you mill them out, which is not hard to do with some of these cards. All you need is like a Mind Sculpt and a Dream Twist. Turn 1 Mind Sculpt, turn 2 Dream Twist, and a Jace's Phantasm. You're just fine right there then, because they'll have 10. The only problem with this deck is Elixir of Immortality. If someone plays that, then you're back to square one. But when I have played, and I have won with this, I have milled out their Elixirs of Immortality. They shuffle their library like 2 or 3 times before I completely mill them out, which isn't bad. Alright, now onto the sideboard. I'm just going to go ahead and put these out here. I couldn't really think of much to put in the sideboard, so at one point this deck was 65 cards, but I narrowed it down to 60 just for the purpose of displaying this. Alright, we've got 4 Essence Scatters, which you can, of course, always use to replace the Mana Leak and throw in some negates as well. So there are plenty of cards that you can use to take the stuff that's going out of Standard and replace it with stuff that's still in Standard. So you have Essence Scatter, 2 Rot Crown Ghouls, which it's a bigger creature, but when it dies, a player puts 5 cards into the graveyard from their library. And then we have Encrust, 2 of them. Target artifact or creature can't untap during the untap step. We've got Cellar Door. Bottom card of the library is put in the graveyard, and if it's creature, you get 2/2 Black Zombie. That's more for creature generation, but I wouldn't necessarily use Cellar Door too much. It was just like a bit of an afterthought. I actually started this deck because of the Deck Builder's Toolkit I opened, which you can find that video also on YouTube, but with that, there was like a 10-card Blue Mill starting base, pretty much, for building a deck. So I kind of built it based off that, and there was Cellar Door in there, so I added another one, but I took them out for the sideboard. Alright, then we have Chronomaton. Great card, easily pumping it up. And you can always pay the 1 mana and tap it to pump it for an opponent's turn, or on an opponent's turn, in the event you need to block with it. And last but not least, Curse the Bloody Tome, and the target player puts the top 2 cards at the beginning of their upkeep into their graveyard. Not bad. Or the player you've enchanted with it. Alright, so there you have the sideboard. Now, let me just say, before I show you kind of how fast this is, I played against one person with a faster Blue Mill deck. Now, there was one issue with this faster Blue Mill deck. It wasn't milling me, it was milling him. Although it could have milled me. He actually did this just to see what would happen. I'll show you in just a second. Let me finish shuffling this. Excuse me. Alright. And also, while I'm doing this, by all means, please let me know in the comments below if there are any other decks you want me to explore. Now, when Return to Ravnica comes out, I'm going to do at least one deck tech video for each guild. So there may only be 5 around the Return to Ravnica time. Possibly more. I haven't figured that one out yet. So I'm just going to go ahead and shuffle that up a bit. Now, the one card that he used when he was playing me, and he milled himself using pretty much all those cards that said mill target player, not target opponent. And if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game. So as long as this is out there on the field, that's how it works. So I don't have the one, it's in foil, so I didn't put that in there because the chance of me pulling the 1 out of 60 while I'm milling myself with pretty much no way to get it back, I didn't feel like doing that. Once I learned of it, but instead, I think I'm going to do something along the lines of Battle of Wits, just because. And I'm going to include that in there, Battle of Wits and Karn. Purpose of Karn is his -14 ability, where you just pretty much exile something, and or anything that you've exiled with Karn comes back, and you restart the game, and that's on the field with you. With Battle of Wits, of course, all you need is like 240 card deck. Play it, exile it with Karn. You're good. Now, for the sake of time, don't want to make you guys watch too many 20-minute too many 20-minute videos here with my deck techs. I'm going to try and keep it to a small minimum. So, just quickly do another bit of shuffling. Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. Alright, so not the best starting out. Of course, you have to start out with an island. Another island. Probably put down a fog bank with it. Another island. Oh, that's not an island. Another island. Sands of Delirium. Another island. 2 Jace's Erasures. Another island. Dream Twist. And I probably just use the existing one there for milling 4. Another island, keep milling, more mill, hold on to that in the event that you have something, more island, keep milling, another Dream Twist. At some point I would have flashed back the Dream Twist, so sorry, that's a little off the camera here. At least it looks like it. At some point play Jace, use the 0 ability, they're going to be milling stuff. So, essentially, I think so far with this they would have milled about maybe 15 or so, then plus 12 from these 2, and flashing back, then several with these, and then 10. So, you probably got them to like half their library at this point. You can, of course, always play Dread Waters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They mill 7. Costs 4, and they mill an additional 3 with Sands of Delirium, so you see how it's working pretty much. And Vapor Snag, return a creature, more island, Jace's Phantasm. Now, if you're doing this at home, you probably want like one more Jace's Phantasm. You probably want a couple more Sands of Delirium, things like that. And maybe a little bit more control, like negates and essence scatters in your actual library. But there you have it. That is my completely blue mill deck, but it won't still be in standard based on the M12 cards and the new Phyrexia. So, see you guys later.